Definitely some cool animation for the intro. That was actually done by TMS, which is the animation studio that formed out of what was the Akira Committee. They've worked on too many shows to name. I think the most famous one would probably be Batman the Animated Series. But anyway, one of the big problems that Sega faced with the Sega Saturn was that it was a console primarily designed for 2D games in an era where 3D games were all the rage, which is a shame because, like, despite the fact that 3D graphics were the way of the future at the time, a lot of the 2D games that came out at the time, many of which were harshly rated back in the day, ended up being the games that would hold up better than most of the 3D games that were coming out at the time. So something like Symphony of the Night, Doom 64, or Street Fighter Third Strike are probably hold up better than something like GoldenEye, uh, Virtual Fighter, or the 3D Castlevania game. However, just because a game was 2D didn't necessarily mean that it was going to hold up. And to me, the crowning example of that would probably be Astal. So Astal actually has a pretty complex story. I actually pulled up my writing for it just to make sure I wasn't getting anything wrong. So the game centers around two kids created by a goddess, Astal and Lita. Lita is in charge of building the planets, while Astal is in charge of protecting her. But a demon kidnaps Lita, and when Astal goes to rescue her, he accidentally cracks the planets, which angers the goddess and leads her to imprison Astal on some kind of moon. But what she didn't realize was that she basically took away Lita's protector, which opened her up to be kidnapped again by the demon. So now Astal has to go on a journey to get back to the planet and save his friend. The plot in Astal is actually pretty good, I would say, and it's brought to life with some pretty stellar animation for the time too. Like TMS did a great job with the opening cutscene, and they do tell the story a little bit throughout the game. The in-game graphics are nothing to snuff at too. I mean, Astal's character sprites, the background, the animations, the colors, uh, it's one of the prime examples I can think of 32-bit gaming from the time. Great music too. Not really my cup of tea, but it is fitting for the experience. My main issue with Astal is primarily the gameplay. It's sort of a combination of 2D platformer and a beat 'em up with all kind of different moves that Astal can do to take out enemies. But my main issue with it is just how clunky it all feels. I hate how slow Astal moves. You can't get on a run, but again, you have to double tap the D-pad in order to do that, even though there's plenty of buttons to map a run button to. And, like, it just never does anything terribly impressive, despite how good the graphics are here. It's just not a terribly stimulating game. By no means bad, just not all that fun to play in my experience. And unfortunately, Astal would be a victim of poor marketing when it came out too. There weren't any commercials that I could find in the game, and the box art, especially in America, was just horrendously bad. So it wasn't terribly popular back in the day, but this is another game that Saturn collectors have gone back and checked out over the years, and many now consider it to be one of the better games on the console. I wouldn't consider it to be top tier for the system, but it is still a noteworthy entry in the console's lifespan, so I figured it was worth a look. Plus, it's not like it's a terrible game either. Recommended to Saturn enthusiasts only. Be sure to join me tomorrow as we continue on with this little retrospective of mine.